Cory Sandhagen getting back in the win column, finally, with a win over Song Yadong. Now, it was stopped, I think, just before the 5th round due to a massive cut over the left eye/eyebrow area of Song Yadong. BC, I have a few takeaways myself, but let's start with you. Your biggest takeaway from Cory Sandhagen getting this victory is what?
Not to panic. That's what. He's still of this ilk. He went back to the lab, retooled a bit. This fight was never going to be easy, right? I think collectively our prediction was basically it's going to be a real fight. He's going to have to go through some heck, but we think experience-wise, we think what's still left in him can get him not only to a victory, maybe even a stoppage. Now, I know the stoppage was a different kind because of the blood, but, he still opened that cut. He's still the reason for that cut that brought him here. Luke, I saw a reformed mentally, physically, emotionally fighter who is ready to get himself back into a title fight, and I think we will see him there again. This was the type of test he needed to pass in the way he did, and I'm not going to look at, just because two of the 3 judges had it 2-2 going into the 5th, that says anything bad about where he was here, Luke. I liked a lot of what he did out there on Saturday, but the people want to know, Luke, what the hell do you think?
I thought this was a very important performance for Cory Sandhagen. I liked a lot of what I saw. I want to be very clear. I mostly have very positive feelings. And I understand what he said after the fight, meaning like, hey, I want to fight a guy who's ranked, more highly, even above me. Because in this fight, I think he was ranked 4th, and Song Yadong was much lower. I forget what the rankings were. I can pull them up here very quickly. I think he was somewhere in like the 10 region. So at bantamweight, Song Yadong was 10, and you had Cory Sandhagen at 4. So that will change at some point, I suppose, today in one way or the other. So I understand that. All understandable. The very good thing that I saw was there was a lot of really important parts of the things that were weak in his game that he cleaned up. Number 1, he didn't get hit nearly as much. Song Yadong still landed some big shots. Cory Sandhagen has a tremendous chin, but you saw him blocking a lot more. That was the first part that I noticed, right? Yadong would make contact, but he wasn't able to meaningfully break through with his tremendous athleticism and his tremendous power very often. Like that. Number 2, the takedowns from Cory Sandhagen. Most of them were stuffed, but you saw the commentary team talk about it early in the fight about how it was, creating problems for anticipating the offense from Sandhagen, and I thought that was real. And then, by the way, in that 4th round, he not only gets the takedown against the fence, he's able to move in advanced position on top. And that, to me, was big. I was like, wow, okay, really love this. I thought that at times when he was taken down, you saw him scoot back to the cage to get back up. Now, there were still some times he was giving up his back a little bit. Maybe that was coordinated because he thought that, Song Yadong is not necessarily going to be the guy who can take advantage of those positions. Fair enough. That is utterly reasonable. Didn't love that he was giving up his back or showing his back. That could cause him, like, again, you do that against Aljamain Sterling, and it's over for you. But in this case, it was not cataclysmic. So I like that. Even though he brought in Ryan Hall, who's obviously a tremendous, grappling instructor, fighter, trainer, whatever himself, you didn't see him. One of the big problems from Cory Sandhagen previously, he would roll underneath for knee bars and leg locks that would get stuffed, or even if he was able to hurt TJ Dillashaw, it just didn't really meaningfully put him in winning positions over the course of the fight. He was abandoning those in large part, which I thought was great. And by the way, Ryan Hall, just because he's good at leg locks doesn't mean he's going to advise them in all scenarios. He probably was like, hey, we'll go for them in these scenarios, and if they don't present themselves, let's do the other parts. So there was a lot to like from all of that. The only thing I would say is the Chito Vera fight to me is the one that makes sense. I think that one of the things that got Sandhagen in trouble in that losing chapter that he just put behind him a little bit was that he was really eager to move to the top. He was number 1 contender fight against Aljamain Sterling, and let's get back against Jan, and let's go fight TJ Dillashaw. And it showed that his game was still in development. What I would say to you, BC, is for all the things that I love that he cleaned up, and there was a lot, that process to me is not over. That cleanup process is still in motion. What I would say is I don't wish for him to rush back. Like if he fights Chito and wins, and it's a quick fight, which is unlikely because Chito is durable as, old shoe leather, I still would want to see him fight yet another one before jumping back into the title. That reformation of his game still is in process.
Wow, that was the perfect example of our show. You know, I got a little too excited. You reined me back in, but I think you're right in the points that you caution. Like, the thing I've never loved about his game is almost like that, like you go to a restaurant, you know, it's like a kitchen. What's that Gordon Ramsay show where he tears up the restaurant, Luke? And yells at everybody? Oh, it's probably every show he's on. It's not Kitchen Nightmares, maybe?
Kitchen Nightmares or Fuck You Kitchen or whatever it's called.
Fuck You Kitchen, there you go. You know, and inevitably the answer, outside of get rid of all the expired stuff from your freezer, the answer is typically your menu has 400 items on it. Like, get that down to about 7 and make them really well, right? I think sometimes I see a Cory Sandhagen who has too many options, is too smart for his own good, and is always trying to flow and react. And sometimes, Luke, he's, you know, waiting too long to react. The decisiveness of the decision-making, I thought, was a key part of this, where even though there was a lot of movement and switching stances, I felt like he was in better control of what he wanted to do. Loved the offensive wrestling. No, it wasn't perfect, but at least he's back in the right direction. So I still think he can get back into another title fight, and it showed us that because largely he looked at Song Yadong, who is still impressive and dangerous and explosive, and he saw that, you know, Yadong is still far from a finished product. He's still too one-dimensional as a aggressive striker. I think he'll get there and get a lot better, but for right now, I think Sandhagen really leaned on that experience edge, and it took him to where he needed to be, which was either ahead like he was on my card or going into the 5th fight round even with a chance to win it. But you know, that didn't matter, Luke, because he was vicious with that switch to the lead elbow very often. It was almost like he was using it like a jab every time Yadong was getting in close. And this was a good version of Sandhagen, Luke. This was a very good one.
He looked sharp. And again, I thought that like it clearly showed that they game planned well. They knew what they were up against with this opponent, and they had a lot of really smart. And again, not because Sandhagen, to your point, he just kind of flows and goes. To me, they dial that back. Let's take what you're good at. Let's take what you're good at, what matters against this opponent, and let's stick to that, which I thought was absolutely the right call. Again, he cleaned up so much. I see people being like, oh, Sandhagen should go to 145, and I don't understand that at all. When you look at this fight between Sandhagen and Yadong, what you really begin to realize is that, and something I say every Friday when we do picks, BC, skills win fights. Skills win fights. When you really get to the top, skills win fights. Look at this scenario. Like, Song Yadong is much more powerful than Cory Sandhagen. He's much, more athletic, I would argue, at least in terms of like the physical force that he can generate, his explosivity, his speed. He's much more of a dynamic athlete than Sandhagen in that regard. And Sandhagen, you heard Dean Thomas, the punches and the kicks couldn't quite get Song Yadong off of him. But it was the overall other choices and skills that he has that he could go to that ended up making the difference. If you've got not like power problems per se at 135, but your power is not like super remarkable, what do you think is going to happen when you go to 45? It's not going to be any better. Yeah. I realize he's got a long frame in that way, but to me, he is highly skilled. He is obviously a very good athlete in his own regard. He has no cardio issues at all. He's very durable, and if he keeps cleaning up these deficiencies, and I think simplify, not like make it stupid, but simplify his game a little bit, I think he could be champion in this weight
Luke,
class.
Is there room for more offensive wrestling in this game? I want to say yes, but you're also asking him to be, elite at every single skill across the board. But I think even if he firmly established the threat of a takedown better, it would only open up even more lanes for his creative striking.
See, I'm glad you brought that up. I was blown away at how good his offensive wrestling was here, and I know that the stats will show that Song Yadong stuffed the vast majority of them, but the fact that he overtook him late and then kept him down for a while, to me, was big, because that's a much stronger guy you're going against. So I really appreciated that, but to me, the big question is not that. That's an interesting, fun, and very important wrinkle that he added to his game, but to me, it's going to be the defensive wrestling that he has to show, breaking contact. Like TJ Dillashaw was able to just hold him against the cage. Defensive wrestling, breaking contact, and scrambling. Those are going to be the three big things that I'm looking for, because again, even in this case, it could have been a very calculated move that they knew he was not so much going to be a threat from the back, that they were able to create, or just to give him back exposure and then not really worry about the consequences. But against other guys in this division, Jan and Sterling and Dillashaw, you absolutely cannot do that. You cannot do that. So to me, this is what I'm talking about rebuilding some of the other parts of his game that have been a little bit not ideally suited. I want to see how his scrambling improves, which, by the way, it was better here. His defensive wrestling, I guess we didn't see a whole lot of it here to get a better, clear sense, but also breaking contact. Not guys who necessarily want to take him down, but guys who want to stifle him. That's what he did to Song Yadong. Those early takedowns, what is he trying to do? He's just trying to put blood in the arms of Song Yadong. He's just trying to wear him down, get the arms heavy, and so that when you have to strike with this guy, it's a little bit easier to do later on. Fair enough. What's going to happen when someone does that to him for extended periods? He needs to be able to, this is the other part too, he has to be able to physically be more of a presence in these fights. Not so much against this guy who is really, really, really powerful, but against other guys like TJ Dillashaw, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more dynamic of a physical force. He's got all the skills. He's smart as shit. He knows what he's doing, but let's bring some of those other forces to bear.
A 10-second divergence here. You know, I often like to fantasize about the idea of, can that guy dunk a basketball? The Sandman, 5'11", good athlete, lanky Luke. Does he put the ball above the rim?
Ooh. So I definitely think he could touch the rim. I think he can touch the rim.
I mean, I could touch the rim, the bottom of the rim. I could barely touch the bottom.
You're
6'1" and a half to be fair, Luke. But people are surprised at how cocksure I am when I stand up when they meet me the first time, Luke.
Yes,
right?
that is true. I get that a lot too, but you get it as well. People are surprised that we're well above the 6 foot club.
Well, I was going to mention here, Luke, that it was great to see the Just Bleed guy who once did time in prison get a job as the ringside doctor for this card, because that guy loves people fighting with, you know, cuts the size of the Grand Canyon there. I do want to say this, that even though I think Song Yadong hit an early sort of ceiling at where his game is at against the elite, is that unfair because 2 of the 3 judges had it 2-2 going to the 5th? Probably, but I think even with the scoring that close, I like Sandhagen's work overall better. I think this was the perfect test in the end for Song, because no, he didn't win. There is something to be said about the scores and the timing of the stoppage. And Luke, with a really bad cut that affected his vision, he was an effective warrior. I mean, I know once he got in his back, that was going to bring an end to it, rightfully so. And yes, I wanted the cage side doctor to stop this a few times, as I did a couple of these fights, because it was getting gnarly in there. I was really impressed by his intangibles that really lead me to believe that the more Song Yadong takes on tough fights and continues to work at it, this dude's going to be something big, Luke. I still feel that. Were you feeling anything? I tend to feel more than you, Luke. I tend to emote.
What is he, 24 years old? I mean, he's 24 years old.
Dude, he's going to be very good. He's going to be a great fighter,
yes.
Luke.
Yes, he needs to avoid damage. And again, to me, it's like athletically, Song Yadong he's good to go. Like, he's more than ready to he has everything he needs in that particular category. The question is, does he have enough of the skills that he needs to, really batter the guys in the top 5? Not yet. But to your point, 24 years old, trains with a good team. I just feel like he needs to manage this next stage of his career. Okay, you've tasted what it's like to fight the top 5 guys, and you found yourself wanting. But there were some positives for him as well. How do we balance out this equation to make it a little bit more of a winning formula? And I think that he has plenty of time to get there, but not taking a shitload of damage. He has to really, not just like lacerations. I mean, don't get hit, don't get beat up, don't accumulate this wear and tear if you don't have to. And he'll really be on his way. He's got a bright future as well. It just wasn't his day on Saturday. Cory Sandhagen is just much, much, much more skilled. And I know it sounds, BC, like I'm beating up on Cory a little bit, or maybe it does, I'm not sure. But I just want to be clear. What he's good at is championship good. Yeah. What he's good at is that fucking good. So the reason why I'm kind of harping on him is because I love that portion of his game. I want to make sure that the deficiencies, which every fighter has, don't hold him back from what I think you'll bring it up all the time, his UBL, his upper bound limit. His upper bound limit, to me, is championship level.